Hello there everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again for another weekly update on DCS World. I'm your host, of course, Prickly Hedgehog. I hope this video finds you well. It's Friday, of course. That means we have another newsletter from Eagle Dynamics, and sadly, just a short newsletter this week. No stones being thrown here at Eagle Dynamics. I know that they are working on a myriad of projects and things, but let's begin with this newsletter, which I think focuses primarily on the Thunderbolt and then the introduction of a couple of new anti-aircraft weapons which look particularly nasty. As a result of the short newsletter, I will focus the second part of the video on some things that I'd like to see in DCS World, and we'll talk about that in just a second, and I'll ask for your feedback on things that you'd like to see in DCS World as well. But let's talk about the Thunderbolt here. Now, they are very, very excited and happy with the Thunderbolt, according to the newsletter. What they have done over the course of the early access period is that they've been able to fine-tune the unique hydraulics, the oil and electrical systems, and the flight model of the Jug. They believe that this aircraft is the best World War II fighter to date that they have produced, and that it sets a new standard for all of their other future World War II aircraft. Now, I'm presuming hopefully this also coincides with the Mosquito, which, remember, is slated for release pre-Christmas. That was the promise. Whether that actually occurs, of course, is up for debate. We haven't had any updates recently, but the general theme was that it would be released pre-Christmas. Fingers crossed for that. And I know a lot of you are excited about the Mosquito being introduced to the game. Obviously, the work that they've done on the Jug is going to be very, very important, like they indicated. And of course, with that statement, the one has to wonder what other aircraft they're going to be introducing to in the near future with this slice of the genre. It's got its own little fan base, its own little niche, if you like, amidst the DCS fan base, and I think it's an important one for the game in general and the studio's health. So this variety is good, and I know some people are dedicated World War II people. I know it has a little bit of competition with IL-2 and what have you, but nevertheless, it's looking pretty good, and I think a lot of fans are very excited about it. So let me know what you think. Now, they've gone on to say that they have used the early access period to extensively test and tune the new damage model, which I know a lot of you are excited about. Let me know what you think. That provided a stable platform for general bug fixing and creating engine damage effects caused by overheating and poor engine management. I'm curious about that too. Let me know if you're a pilot of this aircraft or a World War II bird fan and you've had that opportunity to jump between different aircraft. Let me know how it compares. Is the engine management system manageable, or is that a lot of extra work and pilot overloading? Obviously, with more experience, these things get easier. Certainly when you first jump into the jet, that becomes kind of a workload fixation. But of course, if you're not managing that properly, you can end up with some issues. Anyway, so they have simulated almost all aspects of the aircraft to create the most accurate representation possible for PC. And by the way, don't miss out on this last chance to benefit from a 20% early access discount for the aircraft and enjoy one of the most loved and iconic Allied fighters of the Second World War. Let me know what you think. Pretty cool. All right, moving on to the other topic here, which was the air defense pieces of equipment that they're introducing. Now, as I said, they're kind of nasty looking. This is the ZSU-57-2 that they're going to introduce. This is a Soviet self-propelled anti-aircraft gun, or SPAG, with twin S-68 57mm autocannons that are recoil operated. It supplements the shorter range 23mm gun systems like the ZU-23 or the ZSU-23-4. Look at that, I'm jumping between different pronunciations there for the letter Z. Between American and British there, isn't that interesting? Okay, so I digress. These two 57mm cannons have a range of 20,000 feet and a far larger blast radius. So that's going to be something to be wary of, because that thing will demolish your aircraft, and that's a pretty decent range. So up to, around about 20,000 feet. You're going to have to pay attention if that thing's moping about on the battlefield. All right, the other piece of equipment here is the AZ, or the AZP S60. This is also a Soviet piece of equipment. It's a 57mm AZP S60. It's towed and it's road transportable. It is for short to medium range. It's a single barrel anti-aircraft gun from the 1950s, so it's been around quite a while. The S60 and the S68 cannons both feature blast fragmentation warheads, which are capable of bringing down enemy aircraft with a single round. So another lethal piece of equipment, not something, to be snorted at. So again, be interesting to see how these are implemented in the game. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the newsletter. One little thing here, the virtual air show that they have going on this weekend. This is the Virtual Festival of Aerobatics Team, or VFAT. Watch renowned virtual teams replicate real-life routines, and fictional teams showcase their creativity within DCS World. And I will throw up the schedule if I can on the description below so that you can access that if that's something that floats your boat. Let's talk about the second half of the video and things that I would like to see in DCS World. This is something I've been kicking around for a while. I just haven't gotten around to making a video. And my opinions keep changing and different stuff is coming out. Now I know some of the things that I'm going to talk about here are actually already being implemented or have been discussed in some way, or are actually being worked on in a pending release. So don't take this as my ignorance. Hey, that's already been worked on. Hey, they already talked about that. That is highly likely. Again, this is just a personal list of things that I would like to see in DCS World in the near future, and I would encourage you to put your own comments below as well, because I think there's a lot of good community feedback about the game, and I know they've done a lot of work in terms of keeping user input into the development process ongoing, which is a good thing. So let's talk about my list here. Again, things I'd like to see in DCS World. This is a personal thing. Don't get upset if you disagree with me. If you disagree with me, fine. Put in your own suggestions below and thoughts and comments about this topic, because it's pretty, it can be pretty complicated. Now, this is no particular order or rough order, but this is, like I said, some things that I've been kicking around. First, the dynamic campaign engine. Personally, I think this is probably one of the most single important long-term components that the game needs for replayability. I know a lot of people are into the multiplayer, but if you look at the things that they have discussed over particularly the last year, Eagle Dynamics knows that a lot of its player base is single player, and that on average a lot of the players are really only getting about 20 minutes in the average session. So I think this interactive component of the game is going to be particularly important to engage membership and engage the community and keep single players coming back. So a lot of single players are looking for a war theater environment and being able to engage with the game with their chosen aircraft. I know it is a work in progress right now. And it needs to obviously be editable for some parameters, like being able to choose your own waypoints, waypoint height, weapon loadout, fuel loadouts, similar to other games that we've discussed in the past, like EF-2000 or Falcon 4 BMS and Falcon 4 Allied Force, which I haven't played BMS, but I have played Falcon 4 Allied Force, which was really cool. And of course EF-2000 was my industry standard many years ago in the 90s. And that game really got me hooked on flight simulators, to be perfectly honest, and it was one of the coolest games. I really enjoyed it. We've moved on so much further than that, but we still don't have this dynamic campaign, which I think is really important. Alright, now, the next kind of stuff is more graphical, aesthetic stuff. And one thing I'd like to see, and I know this is being discussed / in the process of being implemented, and that is the dynamic weather. I think this would add to, again, the immersive environment. We do have some pretty cool weather features right now, and you can make some modifications to individual campaigns or missions, if you like, but we don't have an active dynamic campaign with the dynamic weather. I think that would add a great degree of challenge for certain missions which may not be able to be completed easily, or that the targets may be obscured, makes navigation challenging, and generally creates just an extra factor in terms of mission planning and deployment, and again the level of realism as well and interest that I think is important to pilot experience or virtual pilot experience. Now, right now it is editable. You can do localized weather conditions, but I'd like to be able to see it variable in the campaign, just to spike us up, like I said, the challenge of completing some missions, which may be harder if the weather is a little bit odd, or you know, just more challenging to land, take off, and navigate, and all those kinds of things. It just creates that degree of realism, which I'm really looking forward to in the game, and that is being worked on, and I believe parts of it, based on what I've heard, like things like clouds. I think they're going to introduce clouds next. Parts of it are actually ready to go, so fingers crossed for that. Now, this is I threw this out to WAGs earlier this year. Actually, we have, of course, the crew chiefs and the plane captains and all those people on the carrier right now, and I'd like to see that for ground crew for land-based ops. WAGs said it was being considered or was being worked on. It hasn't been implemented yet, but that would be very cool for the Air Force missions taken off from certain bases, and you have an actual crew there. Again, it's an aesthetic thing. Is it critical to the game's function? Of course not. It's just one of those little aesthetic things that I think adds to the realism and the immersive element, which is so important to this game. Air traffic control. I'd like more functional, realistic, maybe intuitive air traffic control. I know they've talked about this. Probably needs to have some sort of tutorial of how those things works, the ground taxiing navigation of the airfield, just to build up the takeoff and landing realism. It's a little bit, you know, static, if you like, right now. It does work. It is cool, but I think that would be an area, a little bit more fluidity in that would be kind of, again, another thing that would add to the realism. Fast jet performance. Tim Davies is doing some cool work on navigation and tutorials. He actually just put one up recently on ILS stuff right now. I think there's a navigation tutorial that he's doing, and he has a server. It is a pay-for server, I believe, but he is offering lessons in quite a variety of basic airmanship or airpersonship. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But he's throwing up some videos on how to do some basic navigation with instrumentation of the aircraft. I'm hoping it's, you know, that kind of stuff in terms of navigating the airfield, patterns and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to see a little bit more around about that, just to learn how to do that a little bit better. I think I'd like to see those kinds of things in the game as well. I know that can be simulated right now. It's just there isn't really a lot, you know, outside of. I think you have to find it outside of the game to go and find that kind of stuff and how to do it, if that makes any sense. And I know that there are some YouTubers who are making those kinds of tutorials. They're not necessarily in game, etc., etc. But again, something I'd like to see. All right, number 5. I'd love to see an improved replay capacity. Obviously, a lot of you know you can save the track and then you got to review it, and sometimes it's not a true replay. So I'd love to see better, you know, improved camera angles for recording and replay capacity, so you can, you know, reproduce better videos. There's some really talented people out there that are able to work with the system as it is, but it's difficult to recreate cool replays and capture some cool stuff that happens in game with the system the way it is right now, which is unfortunate. And I think this would be a real boost for YouTubers out there like me who are trying to create cool videos. It is a lot of work to actually do that right now, the way that the system works. It's not all that intuitive or easy to navigate, alas. But again, more of an aesthetic thing. It's not a critical component, but it would be cool to have. Graphics. This is one of the biggest complaints of the game. It is lagging behind a lot of other platforms in terms of its reliance on older technology, and obviously we're really talking here about support for multi-core processors, better frame rates, etc., etc. There are some people that are lucky out there that have pretty decent systems and are really able to not take the hit that most of us are with average systems are, especially if you are streaming or recording and stuff like that. The game is pretty system heavy right now, and it does tend to bog down a lot of systems. It's just not able to take advantage of modern hardware architecture, and we've talked about this many times before. So hopefully that is something that does get cleared up. They have talked about working on this. It's set for some sort of Passover next year sometime, maybe the middle of next year if I remember rightly. So it is something that is being worked on. And again, I think this would be very important for the game in the future. Yeah, we're going to have all these more powerful graphics cards and systems that are coming up here, but again, it's limited. You know, if the architecture of the software is not able to take advantage of the architecture of the hardware, you know, we're still not getting the best out of the system. And I think for a lot of people, this would be very, very beneficial to have a little bit more. You know, just being able to get more from their system with the game. And I know it is, like I said, being worked on, but right now at times it's very frustrating when you just crawl down to low frame rates and things like that as well. Anyway, last topic, physics on the ground, the bump of the aircraft's wheels over gaps on the runway. You see it in real life videos, you see, you know, there's a little bit more, you don't feel the weight, if you like, of the aircraft. I find that kind of annoying sometimes. Feels like the aircraft's just kind of skipping. So when you're traveling faster, you sometimes get the bumps, but at low speed I should hear the doo 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 as I'm going over things with those wheels. I know the engine noise should drown out a lot of stuff, but you do feel that. And I'd like to see those little things. It's a very minor complaint. Again, it's almost frivolous, but again, it's a aesthetic element, if you like, orally, but I'd like to see that kind of thing in the game because it adds just that extra element of immersiveness. I've seen it with the F-18, some of the work that they've done on the engine sounds and the cockpit sounds and stuff like that. Very, very, very cool. A lot of the studios are working very hard on those little elements. They sound like such small things, but boy, they make such a difference to the immersive element and the realism element, which I think is very, very cool. So, all right. So those are 7 things of things I'd like to see in DCS World. Let me know what you think below. Obviously, there's a lot of different important things out there. A lot of my stuff is kind of visual. I know a lot of people want to have better mission planning, mission editing, maybe more intuitive systems for a lot of other things that are in the game. There's a myriad of topics out there, but let me know below what you think. Let's get some feedback going, some discussion on that, and yeah, we'll make that do for this week. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in for my video and using information, and I hope everything is going well for you. I hope the coming break coming up, or the holiday period, if that's something that you celebrate, is positive for you. We've got a couple of weeks left really before the end of the year, and hopefully we'll get some more updates from Eagle Dynamics and some more news about what's coming up in 2021. I'm excited about the direction that we've got going on right now. So carry on flying, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Prickly Hedgehog out.